It's a real treat for me as a longtime NASCAR fan to be able to spend a few minutes with four-time Sprint Cup champion Jeff Gordon. He's also got a brand new book out this week. Jeff, let's start with the driving part of your career. People recognize the success you had when you were behind the wheel. Maybe people don't know that you're also a co-owner of Jimmie Johnson's team. They just won their 7th championship, ties the record set by Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. You guys have been colleagues and friends for a really long time. What makes Jimmie so successful?
Well, I mean, yeah, he's extraordinary. That team's extraordinary. And you know, when you put that combination together, I've never seen a group that when it's on the line and you've got to step up to the next level that is capable of doing it the way that they are. And I think for Jimmie personally, what I've seen in him is, you know, he wasn't handed anything to him easily. So, you know, I think that was instilled in him as a young kid. He had to fight and claw and dig and work hard, you know, to showcase his abilities, but also to overcome adversity or take on a challenge. And that work ethic has stayed with him really throughout his whole career.
So how does it compare being a co-owner and the boss of a team versus behind the wheel, driving and winning it yourself?
Well, it's definitely different. I mean, there's nothing quite, you know, as exciting as being a driver where you're, you know, in control of that race car. You're working directly, communicating with the crew chief, with the engineers to tune that car, or, you know, putting the car on into the pit box and the pit crew, you know, changing those 4 tires and getting out first. I mean, there's nothing quite like that. That's just amazing to be a part of that. But I will say the next best thing is, you know, to have been involved in the beginning of a team and you know, see it grow, see them evolve, see them turn into this you know, history-making team, and know that, you know, you play a small role in that. I'm very proud of that. So that was exciting. It's the first time I'd ever experienced anything like that, because I'll be honest, all the other times I was a competitor against Jimmie Johnson as his teammate, always going, man, what do we got to do to beat him? And now this year it was, oh man, I sure am glad to be on this side of it and be able to you know, enjoy it with them.
Which one makes you more nervous?
Well, I got to admit, I was nervous, you know, on Sunday. I mean, you know, at one point in the race, it looked like it was going to go, you know, to Carl Edwards, or at one time Kyle Busch. You know, Jimmie was fast and, you know, they were good and they hung in there, but they just weren't quite in the position to win it. So you kind of, you know, started getting a little bit let down, and you see the team sort of settle down as well and start to see, you know, kind of how it's unfolding. And then all of a sudden the caution comes out and they're right in it. And then of course that wreck happened between Carl and Joey, and he comes out ahead of everyone else. I was like, oh my gosh, you know, we're this, I think he's going to win this championship. So that change of emotions was just crazy. And then the red flag. So yeah, I was nervous. Rick Hendrick, he had his hand on my shoulder at the end of that race, and you know, I could feel him shaking, and both of our hearts were pounding, going, "Wow, I can't believe this is happening."
That's really neat, Jeff. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence. We're spending a few minutes with four-time Sprint Cup champion Jeff Gordon. He has a brand new book out about his career as a driver and a lot of personal stories in it. We'll get to that coming up. This was quite a year for you. You were supposed to be retired. I think your idea of retirement is a little different than most of America's. But you were a part-time broadcaster with Fox, so you were in the booth. You also had to fill in as a driver once Dale Earnhardt Jr. encountered the problem with his concussions. It was a mixed bag. How did you juggle all the different responsibilities and make it work?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't the year that I was anticipating, but I never said I was retiring. You know, to me it was retirement is when you go sit in a rocking chair at home and watch TV or mow the lawn or whatever it is. To me it was just stepping away from the full-time driving experience. I guess I always thought that I'd be back behind the wheel of a race car at some point for fun or to do a one-off race. But I did not know Rick Hendrick was going to be calling me in that situation. And it was an unfortunate situation with Dale Jr., but, because of my role and interaction with Hendrick, and the schedule was open. I was happy to be able to step in there. It was a taller task than I anticipated, so it was really challenging. But at the same time, I was really proud to interact with that 88 team and Greg Ives.
Putting your analyst hat on for a second, NASCAR faces similar challenges that a lot of sports do these days, which is keeping its current fan base while expanding and adding new fans around the globe. It's not a unique challenge, but from your perspective, what can NASCAR do to protect the core it's got, but also expand the group of fans for the sport?
Well, TV is changing and sports are changing, as you mentioned. I mean, I think there's probably more eyes on the sport now because of social media and all the different outlets than there ever have been. But we measure everything based on attendance and based on viewership from the TV standpoint. So, I was fortunate to be a part of the sport in those mid to late 90s, and it was just booming and taking off, and TV ratings and attendance, everything were just record-setting, and that was amazing to be a part of. Everybody was all in and totally invested in whatever we can do to help grow the sport, and a lot of great things were happening. And I think right now we just we have to take a little bit of a reset. If I could think of anything, it's just maybe shortening up. I think everybody's attention span is shortened because of technology. And so I think it's, how do we continue to put our sport in front of new faces and people that maybe have never watched the sport before. And I think from an excitement and entertainment standpoint, I think just like what we saw on Sunday, I think we have the best product we've ever had before. So from that standpoint, it's great. It's just, how do we make sure that people are tuning in and staying tuned in? And I think a 3.5, 4-hour race, I think, is a little bit too long, as well as our season is possibly too long as well, going well into the NFL season.
Not all that different from some of the solutions we hear about Major League Baseball and NBA and speeding it up a little bit. So your book comes out today. It's called Jeff Gordon, His Dream, Drive, and Destiny. It's an autobiography, so congratulations on getting that done and out there for people to read. There's a lot going on in your life, though, Jeff. Why write a book now? What was the goal?
Well, you have to plan these things in advance, and we did. Joe Garner, somebody that I had met, my stepfather had met several years ago, worked with him on some other books. One of them was a racing book, and just liked his approach and the ideas that he had. And we said, hey, one day when the timing's right, let's get together and do a project. And obviously, when I knew that I was going to be stepping out of the full-time driving duties, I thought, hey, this is the time. Let's do it now. So really, over the last year prior to me stepping out of the car, we started working on this book, and it was awesome because he was able to go and meet and interview people throughout my life, whether it were people I went to school with, family members, people I worked with, maybe even things like interacting with Bill Davis. That was not a relationship that ended well, when I was driving for him and for Ford, and that moved to Hendrick Motorsports. So all those things just, were really great therapy for me to go relive these moments throughout my career. So I had a blast, and I'm so glad we've done it, and I'm proud of it.
We're spending a few minutes with 4-time Sprint Cup champion, broadcaster, and new author Jeff Gordon. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. My favorite parts of the book were the parts where you tell the stories about your interaction and your relationship with Dale Earnhardt. I went to my first race when I was 12 years old. I grew up as a Dale fan, and I certainly understood the rivalry. My own grandmother had your car sitting on her nightstand. She was a huge Jeff Gordon fan. We didn't know a lot about Dale behind the scenes, so the rivalry was public, but he was a lot more private and kept his personal matters to himself. And so it was interesting to read that you actually were in business together. I didn't know that. How did that partnership with Dale Earnhardt shape your career, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I was as shocked as anybody when, Dale came and kind of, put his arm around me and started talking about things off the racetrack. And this is what I loved about Dale is he cared about the sport. He cared about the fans. And that led to, you know, the business side of the sport as well. And whether it was him talking to NASCAR about what can make, you know, racing better and more entertaining, or whether it be, you know, talking to drivers about how you interact with fans, or, you know, create products, you know, die-cast cars, all these things, you know, to keep the excitement and the fans interacting, and you know, so that was amazing to me that he included me in that. And you know, fortunately, I was having success on the racetrack, and it made sense. Even though on the racetrack, I would have never thought we ever had a friendly conversation. I mean, he was pretty rough on me and loved teaching me lessons, but off the track, you know, he included me in on a lot of things that were really eye-opening and helped me look at the sport through a different lens.
It's obviously an adrenaline-filled sport. There's this amazing rush for both drivers and fans alike, but also inherent dangers. Dale Earnhardt Sr. dying at Daytona. Not long after that, Kyle Petty lost his son in an accident. You also lost members of the Hedrick racing family that you were close to. It's a flat-out dangerous sport. So how do you do it? How do you get behind the wheel every week, focus on your job, even while knowing that the job, the sport, could cost you your life?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, as a kid, getting into a race car, I was 5 years old when the first time I drove a quarter midget, and I think I was probably, 7, 8 years old when a friend of mine was who I was racing against in a quarter midget was killed in an accident. And you know, moments like that happen periodically throughout my career, and they're really very difficult to accept, but it's also the reality of it. And you know, you get into the car and you're so focused on the performance and trying to win and being a part of a team that a lot of times you lose sight of the dangers. So those are constant reminders of, you know, we have to, as an organization, as a sport, constantly push not only the limits of the performance of the car, but the performance of it from a safety standpoint. And several, you know, have sacrificed, the ultimate sacrifice to evolve and help the sport in that sense. So, you know, I always said that I hope that I would be able to step away from the sport on my own terms, and be able to, you know, look back on my career and know that I put everything out there, and I went through some dangerous situations, but also was able to live through some of the best moments that you could ask for as a race car driver. And you know, I don't know what it is about a race car driver that does that and has that mindset, but that's just what we do.
Certainly not an aspect of the sport that every fan thinks about on weekends when we show up at the tracks. One thing before I let you go, you've been so busy with broadcasting, with driving, with the promotional tour for the book. I hope that you have some downtime coming. When you get it, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, yeah, I love to play poker. It's a game I kind of picked up on the road over the years, and you know, with some friends. So I've got a small poker room at my house in North Carolina, but most of the time it's just traveling with my wife Ingrid and our kids. You know, this holiday season's coming up, and we're going to go do some snow skiing. That's their favorite thing to do. I love the outdoors, whether it's a beach or whether it's in the mountains. I just love being outdoors, and it doesn't mean I have to be screaming down a mountain, you know, doing 100 miles per hour, but you know, seeing my kids enjoying themselves and interacting with them is probably my favorite thing to do these days.
He is a 4-time Sprint Cup champion. He's got a brand new book out Tuesday, Jeff Gordon, His Dream, Drive, and Destiny, written with Joe Garner. Jeff, I know it's been a really busy stretch for you. It's so good to catch a couple of minutes. Congratulations on the book. Thanks so much for the time.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope people that get the book, you know, in retail stores or online, I hope they enjoy it, because I certainly had a lot of fun putting it together.